In this episode of Star Hopping with Kissimmee Park Observatory, we'll look at the Canis Minor region and show you how to find these beautiful deep sky objects. The Seagull Nebula, the Medusa Nebula, and the missing Messier object, M48.
All right, let's go star hopping.
Hey, hello, hi, and welcome to episode 45 of Star Hopping with Kissimmee Park Observatory. I'm Dave Hearn, and I'm tickled pink to be your host. In this series of programs, we'll show you the most beautiful sights in the night sky and explain exactly how to find them with your binoculars or your telescope. As we're approaching the holiday season, I wanted to revisit my 2-episode series, Telescopes for Beginners, in episodes 7 and 8 of Star Hopping. I was going to do a 2016 update, but when I reviewed the content, I found it still applies this year, and the telescopes I recommended are still available at Orion Telescope Center. So if you're looking at buying a telescope for a beginning amateur astronomer, check out those 2 episodes. The links to them can be found in this episode's show notes, or you can find them directly at kpobservatory.org/sh007 and sh008. Tonight on Star Hopping, we're continuing to locate some deeper deep sky objects. As the winter stars begin their ascension into the eastern sky, we're seeing the constellations of Gemini, Orion, Canis Major, and Canis Minor appear. The Latin term Canis means dog, and we're familiar with Canis Major with its top dog star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. But there's another smaller dog running around up there in the area, Canis Minor, with its not so shabby 0 magnitude star, Procyon, lighting up the area. I've heard many pronunciations of this star's name. Procyon, as I said a moment ago, Procyon, a little different, and Procyon, the strangest pronunciation I've heard, to be sure. My favorite is Procyon, and I like the star so much I named my astronomy company after it, Procyon Systems. I used to make software and hardware systems for amateur astronomers years ago. Now I just make star hopping videos for you to enjoy. But I digress. Back to Canis Minor. Canis Minor is a fairly small constellation consisting of only 2 stars, Procyon and 3rd magnitude Gomesius. Within the borders of the constellation, you can find only a few very faint galaxies, but in the surrounding area, there are tons of great targets. We'll check out the first one, a large nebula, right after this message. Kissimmee Park Observatory would like to thank our wonderful supporters on Patreon. Your contributions will allow us to create and provide more quality astronomy content. We appreciate your generosity and support.
Star hopping target number 1.
The Seagull Nebula is a very large and visually faint nebula found across the border in the constellation of Canis Major. This is a great photographic target, but there are some brighter areas that you can indeed see visually. The nebula takes the shape of the large seabird of its namesake, with the head of the seagull being the brightest area, cataloged as NGC 2327, or alternatively tracked as GUM1. Most of the nebulosity in this group is cataloged as IC 2177, and it forms the seagull's wings. There's also a bright knot of nebulosity at the end of the right wing of the seagull, closest to Sirius. This area is cataloged as GUM3 and can also be seen with your telescope. Several open star clusters are also involved in this large area of nebulosity, the most prominent being NGC 2335, located on the northern wing of the seagull figure. To find the seagull, we'll start out at bright Sirius. You can't miss that one. Start out by moving 5 degrees to the lower left to 4th magnitude Malefian, also known as Gamma Canis Majoris. Now move about 4 degrees upward to 4th magnitude Theta Canis Majoris. Now this is a very tough jump. Move about 5.5 degrees to the lower left to 5th magnitude FN Canis Majoris. This is the brightest star in the Seagull Nebula complex. The main wing structure lies about a half degree above FN, and Gum 1, which is the Seagull's head, lies about a degree above and slightly to the left. The open cluster NGC 2343 lies about 3/4 of a degree to the upper left of FN, and the open cluster NGC 2335 lies about 2 degrees to the upper left. The bright knot of nebulosity Gum 3 is located about 2 degrees to the lower right of FN. So with a smaller telescope, you'll definitely be able to see the open clusters, and those of you with larger scopes and maybe a nebular filter would be able to see the nebula Gum 1 and Gum 3. The Seagull Nebula complex is thought to be located at a distance of 3,800 light years from Earth. So next we'll look for a very large planetary nebula named after a snaky mythological character. We'll find it right after this.
Star hopping target number 2.
The Medusa Nebula is a fairly bright and large planetary nebula just barely across the border from Canis Minor into Gemini. I found this nebula just last weekend and started to image it right before the clouds rolled in over KPO. But I was surprised what I captured in just a few minutes of exposure. It's very large, spanning 13 minutes of arc across, not quite half the size of the full moon. The Medusa Nebula is cataloged as Abell 21, and it's a very old planetary nebula. It was discovered in 1955, and until the early 1980s it was thought to be a supernova remnant because of its strange shape. This faint planetary is best viewed with a larger scope with an oxygen 3 filter at low power. The brighter area is a huge crescent-shaped object partially filled in with fainter nebulosity. There are 3 or more stars in the arc, but none in the central area. The arc is somewhat brighter along the outer rim, and the open cluster NGC 2395 lies about a half a degree away. To find our snake-headed target, we'll start on bright Procyon. Move 4 degrees upward and slightly left to 3rd magnitude Gomiesa. Make a quick 3/4 degree hop to the left to 4th magnitude Gamma Canis Minoris. Now move about 3 degrees to the upper left to 4th magnitude 6 Canis Minoris. And here's another tough move. Go about 3/4 of a degree to the upper left to a 6th magnitude star. Now slide a half degree to the upper left and you may see the haze of the Medusa Nebula entering your eyepiece. The open cluster NGC 2395 lies about a half degree above the Medusa, so if you can't find the nebula right away, look for the cluster and then retrace your steps. As I mentioned, this came up fairly easy in my astrophoto, so you may have luck capturing this elderly planetary, which lies at a distance of 1,500 light years from Earth. So we can check out a brighter open cluster next, one that Messier made an error on when he cataloged it in his list. We'll find his mistake right after this.
Star hopping target number 3.
Messier 48 is a fairly conspicuous open cluster, shining at magnitude 5.8. The cluster contains about 80 stars, of which about 50 are brighter than 13th magnitude. The more concentrated core of the cluster extends over a half degree, while the outskirts of the cluster reaches out to about 54 minutes of arc, just shy of a full degree. The cluster should be seen with the naked eye under good conditions. But as I mentioned, this cluster was lost by Messier. He actually entered it into his famous catalog in 1771. However, there is actually no cluster in the position indicated by Messier. The value that he gave for the right ascension matches that of NGC 2548. However, his declination is off by 5 degrees. The object remained missing until identified by Oswald Thomas in 1934. So this object appears in 2 catalogs, Messier's at position 48 and in Dreyer's New General Catalog at entry 2548. So let's find the missing cluster that officially lies in the constellation of Hydra, the sea serpent. We'll start out again on bright Procyon. Move straight down about 6 degrees to a 4th magnitude double star. Now move 5 degrees to the lower right to 4th magnitude Zeta Monocerotis. Now move 3 degrees to the lower right and the sparkle of Messier's missing cluster will move into your eyepiece. M48 lies about 1,500 light years from Earth and is about 24 light years in diameter. It's amazing to get that much space in your wide field eyepiece, huh? Okay, so we had 2 challenge objects this week and 1 target for the small scopes out there. We started off with a huge and complex Seagull Nebula in Canis Major with its multiple nebulae and star clusters. A great photographic target to be sure. Next, we checked out the very large planetary, the Medusa Nebula, barely into the constellation of Gemini. Lastly, we found Messier's lost open cluster, M48, found in the constellation of Hydra. So that does it for this week's episode. You can find the show notes on our website at kpobservatory.org/sh045, where you can comment and leave any questions that you may have. You can also contact me personally on Twitter at StarHoppingMan, where I'd love to help you with any astronomy or observing questions. So feel free to reach out on Twitter. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Well, thank you very much for joining me here, and I'll see you next time with more star hopping tips and tricks.
I'm Cassie, and I hope you've enjoyed star hopping around the Milky Way. We'll continue to bring you these video astronomy tutorials and the associated podcast every other week on Thursdays. They'll be designed to help you find deep sky objects that are up in the sky at the time we post them on the internet. The reason we create these videos and podcasts is to help beginning amateur astronomers learn the sky and get more enjoyment out of their telescopes and astronomy in general. If you have any requests for potential targets in the night sky that you would like to see us discuss, just let us know down in the comments section below or on our website blog. Don't miss our free field notes for this episode, basically the script of the show, with all the images and star charts we use for our star hopping activities. You can get them for free at kpobservatory.org/fieldnotes. If this is the first time you're checking out star hopping, and if you found this video useful, please consider subscribing to our channel by clicking the big yellow button, click the thumbs up on the video, and please share this tutorial out to your friends who like looking at stars. Also, as I just mentioned, please feel free to leave any question or comment below, and we'll be sure to respond quickly. Please follow KPO on Facebook, where we post all of our astronomical digital images, and keep everyone informed about upcoming astronomical events. We'd love to hear from you to discuss all this great stuff up in the sky. All the links to these places in cyberspace, including our website, kpobservatory.org, can be found below in the episode notes as well. And finally, if you feel this video provides you value, and if you'd like to see more, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where for a small amount per video, you can support our efforts, and help us make even more great astronomy tutorials, just like this one. So bye for now, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Star Hopping with Kissimmee Park Observatory.